lovers. Welcome to Toon Talk. I'm Jen.
And I'm Stephen James.
And today we are with Alfonso with Heartsick. Woo!
Hello, it is I.
I think that we did a show together, man, but I can't remember because I was in this band called Suicidal Fish, and I could have swore we did a show with you guys at the Hamilton pub before.
Probably, man, to be honest with you. I mean, we played the Hamilton so many times that it's, I think, man, we've played geez, dude. I remember we've been playing the Hamilton Street pub since like 2003 or some shit.
Right.
Like, where it used to be called No Life.
Which, by the way, sorry to hear about your friend.
Okay.
I mean, years have gone by now, so I'm sure it's easier to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, it's been, it was when it happened, it sucked for sure. But as most things, time sort of does its thing and heals the psyche, I think. I mean, it's always there, it's not like, I think when people ask about it, then it's like, you're like, oh yeah, that did happen. Or like when something in conversation brings it up and you're like, oh yeah, like that was a thing that happened to us. But for the most part, I think for most of us, it's just sort of, it exists in the sphere of what the history of the band is, but I don't actively like sit there and like feel any which way about it. I think at the end of the day, I mean, it's, that's part of, unfortunately, part of living is dying, and there's no, my approach to that sort of stuff is there's no real timetable. I think we like to put a time on it because it makes us feel safer about the totality of what death is. But the reality is that there's no time. I mean, I think we're just, we're fortunate to live X amount of however long we live. And some of us live longer, some of us live shorter. And that's just what it is. I think at the end of the day, I'm grateful I had all those memories with him. And, it's interesting to talk about him in the context of the band within the band members, because three of us remember him well and have great stories. And one of us wasn't even born. When he was in the band. So it's definitely interesting, but it's like the best way to honor someone you care about and love that isn't here is to talk about them. And I think that's the healing thing. It really is. So no need to be sorry.
And you became Heartsick in memory of your friend, the drummer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We, the name changed because through a series of like people that were sort of helping lead the band and sort of manage the band, the idea was, changing the band name from what it used to be, No Life, to Heartsick wasn't a revolutionary like idea that people brought to us and be like, you should change the band name or anything like that. It was just kind of all the things lined up together for that to make us feel comfortable to do it, because until that point, before Matt's passing, we would very much be resistant to changing the band name, because that was a conversation that came up a lot. Like, and Matt himself, when he was here, he hated the band name. He absolutely hated the band name No Life. He thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. He'd always make fun of it. It was like a big thing for him, right? And so it was something that people would bring up all the time. And then when he passed and it was brought up again, I think that was kind of like our way of giving ourselves an excuse out of the name, right? I think that was like the safest path for us to not feel resistance towards it. It was like, well, we're doing it because of this, so this feels okay. As to where before it was like, we've had people, you guys should change the band name. It's stupid. It's hurting the band's, ability to do stuff. And we'd be like, no, we've worked so hard on it, blah, blah, blah. And when he passed, it was like, okay, I think this is our get out of jail free card.
Right. Like, oh,
Let's take it.
right? Then there you
Exactly.
go.
I was at work jamming your stuff today, man, and I really dig it. And not only do you have a great growl and scream and everything, but you also have a phenomenal voice too. So
Thank you.
The melodic and the heavy, and I really dig on it. It's really good.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. We work hard, I think, really to really cultivate what I think is like our own sound and our own sort of, musical tonality within the genre that we do, which is heavy metal. And I definitely work really hard on trying to be just I wouldn't say like my goal is to be like a great singer per se, because I think there's a difference between a singer and a vocalist. To me, a singer is someone who's really defined by this sort of almost kind of prophetic voice, right? When you listen to a band like Seven Dust, that dude's a singer. LeJohn's a singer. He's got a beautiful voice, right? Like, I would never want that guy to scream too much, because it's like, yo, like your voice is so absolutely insanely beautiful that it fits with what you're doing, and it needs to be heard. Or like Sleep Token, right? It's like, I never want to hear that guy scream. It's like your voice, you were given a voice from the heavens. Like, please sing.
I'm saying,
so
so
it's like, to me, that's a singer. Like, that's a singer. That's somebody that it's like, that dude can belt out some amazing melodies and songs. I want to hear him sing. I want to hear, Frank Sinatra sing. I want to hear singers. And then I feel I fall.
You can carry the note.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly, and has this this timbre to it, and this sort of beauty in it, And then you have what I feel like are vocalists. To me, like, great vocalists are people that don't necessarily have this like incredible like voice that's going to win them a Grammy because they did some amazing a cappella, but their voice is so unique unto themselves that it makes the band or the music what it really is. It's like, would Limp Bizkit be Limp Bizkit without Fred Durst, right? It's like, is Fred Durst a great singer? Of course not. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that Fred Durst, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't mean that in like Fred Durst cannot sing. That's not it. It's, if you're going to compare Fred Durst to Vessel, it's like,
no,
right. I was just thinking like Bob Dylan and Whitney Houston.
He's unique to his sound, to that he fits.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a great example. Great example. Bob Dylan, Whitney Houston, right? It's like both are equally talented in what they do. One is a singer, one is a vocalist, right? I'd argue one's a singer and one's an activist, right? Like, it's really what it is. So for me, I want to be the best all around vocalist that I can be. Like, I don't have any misguided ideas that I'm some incredible singer. I don't think my voice is terrible by any means. I feel that I can absolutely hold a note and sing well, but I'm not going to do what a guy like Vessel can do, what a guy like LaJohn Witherspoon's going to do, or Tesseract or whatever else, right? But I also want to be able to do things of bands that I might listen to but wouldn't generally make that kind of music. So it's like, I try and teach myself and practice to do things like Will from Lorna Shore. Like, that's not a style that we're not a death metal band or black metal band, but I will sit there and learn how to do these things. We're not a rap metal band by any means, but I will sit there and learn how to do these things, just because it's like, you want to be able, at least for me, I want to be able to turn those things on and off if I so choose, if the music calls for it. And I don't want to be caught, with my pants down and be like, this would be really cool to be able to do, but I can't do that. I don't want to have that excuse, right? So,
right. Yeah, some of those growls and those deeper sounds take a lot of training and a lot of energy to push out. And if you're not practicing that regularly, it can really do a lot of damage to your singing voice, you know, so it's
Absolutely.
definitely an art.
Absolutely. It really is. It's, you know, and I always laugh, you know, because when like, you know, when you tell people, oh, I'm in a band and, and they're like, oh, what kind of band? And you're like, a metal band, you know, of course I think it's funny because there's always this first sort of idea of, oh, like it's cute, your cute little like local band that just, you know, plays to your friends at the local bar. And it's like,
Oh, you mean you're like Metallica?
you know, you know, and people sort of just automatically put themselves in that and go, oh, it's just some local band. And I think that like they just envision some like shit bar and like a bunch of people. So for them, it's already sort of this like lost idea of what it actually is. And then on top of that, they're like, oh, so it's all that rah stuff. And it's like, okay, there is a lot that goes into just that. And then when they find out that the band is what I would say relevant in a more wide sphere. Not you know, we're not Mudvayne, we're not Deftones, not like that, but the band is relatively growing and in a sphere outside of just we play the local bar in Lansing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And and it's funny seeing people's like face go from, oh wait, like this is like a band like,
Right.
and it's not just this like idiot on the microphone screaming nonsense.
We're just hanging out in the garage.
Or your Friday, Saturday night cover band. You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's interesting. So it's always interesting to see that sort of reaction because they'll be like, oh, let me look up your band, and they're like, oh wait, like it's like, yeah.
No, I understand it completely. I mean, it's something that I do myself. You know, I mean, I did the covers for 20 years of my life, and then I just within the past 5 years or so, I started doing originals.
Nice.
And I've been in a couple bands. Like I said, I think we did a show together. At this point, right now, I'm just kind of writing and producing my own music. And really,
that's awesome. I mean, yeah, like I think that's the beauty of it all, really, too, right? I think it's at the end of the day, it's really about what your goal and what your purpose is within the sphere of the music that you want to make or what you're looking for. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with dudes who are in professional cover bands and just, you know, play the local bar. Like that's fine. Like I totally get it. And to be honest, like I have buddies that literally just, you know, yeah, like I have buddies that literally just play covers and they make way more money than we've ever made our entire 20 years as a band in a year, right? You know, playing original music. And then there's dudes who like, you know, I mean, I think the best example of that is Pop Evil. Every time, like, people, do you guys know Pop Evil's story? Like, do you? So,
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's often what I find. And it's interesting because Pop Evil was a cover band. And the reason why they got the name Pop Evil was because they were a cover band from Grand Rapids, but they would play Lansing a lot. And their whole shtick was, as a cover band, that they would cover pop songs and make them rock songs. So that's why they were called Pop Evil, right? And they would play like here in East Lansing and Lansing Rick's and like Rick's American Cafe and like the Riv and they, you know, Harper's. And their whole thing was they would play 4 hours of just like popular pop songs, but they would turn them into like rock songs. But here and there, they would put in like their original songs. And I mean, hey, like more power to them. They were able to raise enough money to be able to do a campaign for themselves that really put them on the map and has given them the success that they have. And that's great too. And then there's other dudes who are just like, I will never be in a cover band and that's okay too. I think at the end of the day, it's really like, what do you feel your sense of purpose is with it? You know, and if being in a band with a bunch of other dudes playing original music and trying not to like murder each other while you go play shows on the road, you know, and like trying to write a song that people care about, great. And if it's just, you know, learning, you know, 4 hours of The Who, Guns N' Roses and Stone Temple Pilots and whatever else, great, whatever, man. Like as long
as you're doing what you love, man, you know?
Yeah, there's no right or wrong to this. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? I think that's art in general. I think the beauty of art is there's nothing that is wrong if you're just doing it because it comes from a place of creativity, you know?
Right. And I love that. It's music is just one of those things that everybody has in common. And, you can, the people that do the cover bands, like, for instance, some of the people that I know, maybe they're not the most creative, or songwriters or whatever, but they might be a great guitar player or a great drummer or whatever, and they just want to play.
Yeah.
And it's great because they feel it, and you can tell the people that really enjoy it. Like, I don't even care. Like, I just want to get out there. I just want to play,
Yeah.
and then it doesn't matter because everybody feels it, and it's great. And it's the same thing for the people who write and put their music out. When you go out on stage, you've got what, 2 albums and, a bunch of, singles out right at this point, right?
Yeah.
You've worked really hard and you believe in what you do. So when you go out on stage, people can feel that because it's genuine.
Exactly.
You enjoy what you're doing, and that's what's great about music, and it brings everybody together.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's really, at the end of the day, and that's really what it is, right? It's like, going out there and just putting a piece of yourself out there into the world. And some of us are more comfortable with being that vulnerable and doing that and putting out, the original stuff. And there's other of us that are just not. And they're like, I know what I do well, but I don't want to put myself in that sort of a vulnerable position. So I'm going to play these songs and do this. And that's fine too, because at the end of the day, like, people in cover bands make eternally more money than any original band.
Right.
I know it's always good to have, that in your back pocket too, as an original band.
Yeah.
If you want to make that extra cash, you learn, you're a set of your own originals and then 3 sets of covers, and you go out and you make your money. And I mean, some places pay $600 to $1,000 for a weekend.
Oh, dude. I mean, I know a couple of bands right now that are just strictly, so there's a band from here. They are like an emo rock cover band, and they do essentially all like the hits from the emo era. And those guys get like $3,000 a show, and I'm like, fuck, dude, like, I want to get $3,000 a show.
No kidding.
There's another band that I don't know if they're still together or not, but another buddy of mine. They were like an 80s cover band essentially, but they were like really big in the scene. They play the Machine Shop a lot and all these other places. And those guys, I mean, like, those guys literally would get flown out to a resort in Mexico City, get all the like expenses paid for, and get paid like $6,000 just to play fucking hair metal covers. And I'm like, God,
on Boulevard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, sure, I'll take that.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, talking about putting pieces of your art out there, what do you have? Do you have anything coming up, or are you guys gonna be touring? I know you guys are gonna be playing at the Vault next week, October 27th. It's a Sunday. Mm-hmm. It'll be an early show. We're calling it the Triple Threat.
There's some good bands on the bill too, Ghost in Motion and Twisted Eulogy.
Yeah, man, some really great local, talent from the area. We have actually a lot of stuff. So the last 4 years, because when we went through the pandemic, I think it was pretty much 2020, but we released a record in 2019, which was called Sleep Cycles. And then we were already going back into the studio, just working on songs. And then the pandemic hit, and there was nothing really to like be able to do to go play out. So we were in the studio a lot recording songs. And then we're going back into the studio actually next month in November to record another 5 songs. And I think in total, after this session in the studio, of these 5 songs, we'll have done in the last 4 years, probably recorded almost 30 brand new songs. I think we've released like 2 EPs with new songs and then some other singles on there. And then we have 11 unreleased songs on top of the 5 that we're going to do. So we have, 16 or something new songs that we have. Eventually the goal is we'll release a brand new record. And I think the idea is to release the record probably in either 2025, maybe February, maybe March.
Will we get a teaser?
Yeah. So I mean, right now, so we have 3 singles that we had put out: "Sadness," "8 Years," and "Sleep Cycles." Those will be on the new record, and then we have 11 other songs on top of these 5s that we are going to go do to choose from. And we just want to sort of pick the best ones to have a record, but then we're going to have enough for another EP. So we have tons of music, sort of stocked up so that we can sort of continue to release songs and continue to release material. It's just wanting to be able to pick the best of the best and then sort of have a plan with that. So yeah, I mean, right now the plan is sometime in 2025, probably the spring or late winter, probably announce a new record. What that's going to look like as far as like what it's going to be called and all this other stuff, we don't really know. But we have an idea of sort of a rebrand and sort of kind of reintroduce the band with some new artwork and a bunch of stuff. So a lot of moving parts in the back wheels there. We do have some pretty cool guest vocals. One guest vocal we have, I think people are going to shit themselves when they see who it is. It has Switch in the name. So, yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be cool.
I got a couple of mine in that one.
We'll let the audience, the people watching,
All right,
guess that.
So yeah, so
Maybe they'll put it in the comments. Put your ideas of what that could be in the comments below, and maybe Alfonso will
confirm or deny.
Confirm somehow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys think. For
sure. So speaking of your albums and music release, when you guys write, what's your writing process like? I mean, is it everybody collectively, or how's that work? Yeah.
So it's changed over the years. I think when we first started the band many years ago, I think the climate and what recording and home recording was obviously a lot different. So we would always write together, in our practice space and just make songs all right then and there, like all in a room together. And that was pretty much the norm for, I'd say, probably like 14 or 15 years. And then in the last 10 years, we've sort of shaken up that sort of model that we do. So we started sort of just going into the studio and just writing songs right there in the studio, just coming up with ideas. And then recently, we just kind of came back into the fold of let's all sit in a room and write together again. So we have a writing session coming up in November, right at the beginning of November, to where we're all going to be in a room together again writing. And that'll be the first time we do that, I think, in a long time, and a couple of at least 3 or 4 years. So that should be really fun. So it's always changing. It's always evolving. A lot of how we did things recently was just because everybody's schedule is kind of weird, and it was hard to get everybody in a room together at the same time to write all these songs or whatever. So it's easier to go to the studio with 1 or 2 of us and just sort of, pump out ideas and see what stuck to the wall type thing. And I think now we've been able to collectively get together and be like, hey, I think we want to get back in a room and write together again. So let's set aside 2 chunks of time between 2 days and see what we can come up with in that two days. So
No, I understand that dynamic because I mean, I personally I miss it a lot. Because with writing and my own music right now, I have to reach out to a lot of musicians and work with studio people and say, okay, here I got this idea. What do you think? What would you do with it? And then, I got to hire somebody to, okay, here's a basic drum beat. What can you do on this? And it's all outsourced for me right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the beauty of the technology right now, right? It's like as to where back in the early 90s and in the 80s, you had to spend a lot of money to go to somebody's whatever studio somewhere and like record to DAT or to tape or whatever it was. And now it's like, I mean, some 16-year-old kid can just have his laptop, have an easy little interface and a couple of, programs on his computer and his guitar and just make some gnarly stuff. And I think that's awesome, and he can share that with his friends that he wants to be in a band with. And I don't know, wherever, like maybe he's in Germany and the other guys are in Pittsburgh or something, and they're writing songs together virtually through a computer screen and making music. I think that's beautiful. I think that's awesome. I mean,
that is really interesting. And I can't remember the band.
Jamie Bassell with Bassel.
No.
Well, he is working with people in a different country. Yeah.
Well, we had a band that played at the Vault, and the singer was from like Wisconsin or something. And,
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and then they showed up, and none of them had ever played together. It was like their first time actually playing together.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? Isn't that like a fucking mind fuck?
It's like, what?
Yeah, like it feels like all this conditioning we've done to ourselves as musicians and as proprietors of live music. It just feels like it's just all being dumped, and we're just like, oh my God, am I my parents now? Like that I just can't get used to whatever's changing.
I thought that too. Yeah, I thought that a couple times. In fact, there was something happened today, and I was like, oh man, I'm becoming my parents. Like,
yeah. Why am I so mad about this right now? I don't understand.
Somebody was like, and I said, oh yeah, like the good old days, or like, oh, I just want things back to normal. And somebody was like, well, what's normal? I'm like, the fucking 80s.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like the time which I understood things and I didn't understand what these kids are saying now. Oh, I needed to take my coffee cup at something.
I seen a meme the other day that said, we never thought we'd get to the point where musicians, and not only do you have to be a musician now, you also have to be a content creator.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's, I think if there's anything that I do feel is really sort of hard to get used to and that I can't honestly say that I'm on board with, but you just have to do it, is content creation. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of it feels very contrived, right? A lot of it, I think what ends up happening is you start having, I just feel like it starts to breed this mentality of needing to be seen and heard and like be a rock star and all this other stuff.
Right.
Which is ironic because the people that we call rock stars, they weren't doing anything that they were doing that gave them that sort of mythological or sort of, like bad boy kind of title because they were trying to earn it. These people were just wild and crazy, and they lived in a time where it was sort of accepted. It didn't matter what it was, if it was sexual assault or whatever it was like, it was normal, or destruction of property or whatever. In the 80s, if you're reading that Nikki Sixx threw a TV out the hotel window of whatever hotel out in Germany, that's just who he was at that time, strung out or whatever it was. He wasn't doing that to get attention so that people would go buy his band CD.
Yeah.
Now it's like
you didn't even want really that attention, really.
Yeah, right. It just made the news because it was so out of character for any human being to do that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now it's like, yeah, now you have these people who are content creators who are just like, well, this person did this, so now I have to top it. And then it's the only way that the algorithm's going to pay attention to my band. And I feel, I feel in some ways like it's obviously a good tool. Obviously, I think that if you learn how to use it and you're authentic with it and genuine with it, then I think it does help. But unfortunately for me, it feels like 9 times out of 10, bands, which are usually the culprits, aren't organic or original with it. They're just like, this is trending, let's copy this, but just do this instead. And it's like, it doesn't interest me, at least. So we try and approach our content creation and our social media in a very different way, to where we're not writing off of trends or making these like, when the Mandalorian really first came out, everybody had like, the little baby Yoda hitting the play button and it plays the song. And it was like, oh my fucking God, bro. Like how many of you unoriginal fucks are gonna do this? Like, what are we doing right now? It's like 700 bands are doing this now. It loses its luster the seventh time. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what happens with content creation a lot of the times.
How do we make untrending popular again?
Exactly, right? Like how do you, and I think that's the trick. I think the trick is, how do you take something that is a trend or whatever and navigate it as a tool for yourself to elevate what you want to be seen in your art, but to be genuine and authentic with it? Because I mean, that's what to me, that's what matters for people. When people think about Heartsick, I want people to think about us as band members and as people and as a brand as authentic, and not just another band on the internet, because that's not interesting to me. So we don't do these. We don't play with these trends. Like, you're not going to see me out in the fucking woods singing one of my lyrics. Like, I don't want to look like a fucking moron, like out in the woods singing into like, that doesn't make any sense to me. How is that interesting to anybody? To me, that doesn't feel authentic. To me, it feels like this person did it, this person did it, this person did it, this person did it. I feel like what's more authentic is me sitting in my room. Hey, I'm bored. I'm just going to record this live right off the rip. No effects, nothing, and just recreate what I did in the studio without any edits. And here you go. Like, I find that to be the same sort of concept, but a genuine thing to be like, oh, well, he's not like, it's not obviously a really good recording of him. Like, it's right there. It's in your face. It's raw, good or bad. Here you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I do that. I'll play my piano and record it, or my acoustic, and say, there you go. There it is.
Yeah. It's this idea. It's this hyperfixation with perfection and hyperfixation with attention. And it's like, it's just not something we care about or we're into. I'm not hyperfixated on people thinking that we're perfect musicians. What we do in the studio takes time. And I mean, if you sat in the studio with us and I had to record a couple guitar parts, because I do sometimes, I'm like just screaming and like losing my mind because I'm like, I fucking suck. It's not a fun process sometimes, but the end process, it's fun. But it's easy to get on the internet and go, oh, look at these cool little things. And that's okay too. But I guess it's just on how you present it. I think authenticity still matters, at least for me.
I agree too.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Well, we're really super excited for October 27th. You guys are coming out. So doors are going to open at 6. I think the band started at 7. So what was it? Ghosts in Motion and Twisted Eulogy. Yeah. So I loved that, we kind of gave, not we as in me, I mean, I worked there, but the vault gave it the name Triple Threat, because I think it really is the three bands together, and your guys' sounds I think are going to be
A hell of a night.
I think it really is. I know earlier today, on somebody on my Facebook was posting about this week's show and then said, but make sure that you come out next week too, because she doesn't really go out to a lot of shows, but she was going to this one and the Triple Threat show next Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes it interesting too, right? I think when it comes to shows, and this show on the 27th of October, us at the Vault with, Twisted Eulogy and Ghost in Motion, I think people these days like I said, we're not in the 80s and the 90s anymore. I think people these days want more from a show. There needs to be something outside of just another show, right? If it's a band they've seen multiple times, then there's got to be a deciding factor to go, right? It's why you're seeing Korn do 30 years of Korn, right? 30 years of their self-titled record. It's why you're seeing a band like Under Oath do 20 years of, whatever the record is that they had, or, Limp Bizkit's coming back out on tour and they're playing all just a specific record. It's because I think there's the understanding that, like, okay, we need to make this an experience for people. I think for us, we don't play the Vault a lot. We don't go out to Saginaw often anymore. So I think for people, it's like, well, we haven't seen them in a long time and they don't come out this way, and they don't play the Machine Shop very often either. So this is kind of our only chance to see them probably in the next 6 months to a year or something like that. So let's go out. And I think even just giving it like a nice little fun title like Triple Threat is fun too, because it's a way to remember it. It's easier to remember shows by maybe a certain title or name than it is to, like, let's go watch band.
Right.
It's it's why festivals are named festivals, right? It's like, it's why you have Mayhem Fest, or you have Louder Than Life, or you have Sounds of the Underground back when that was a thing, or Ozfest, right? Because it was easy to remember that, right?
Yeah.
Or you used to have bands name a tour, whatever it was, because it was easier to remember that tour than it was to be like, let's go watch all these bands that are touring together. It was easier, like, oh, let's go watch the whatever tour, that has POD and
Triple Threat Showcase.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.
I don't know about Showcase or whatever. I like the Triple Threat. I thought that was.
It does say Showcase.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that it has a spring to it, and you guys we're really excited to have you guys, and we'll get some people out there, and so people can get tickets ahead of time. Yeah, so those are going to be at Maple Gardens, the Junction in Saginaw, and Grand Central.
Grand Central, yeah.
Yeah, Grand Central on State Street. So make sure you get your tickets ahead of time. I'll be watching for you guys at the door. Maybe I'll be doing some video downstairs.
Please do. And if you're one of those people that lives your life on the internet, you can go to Eventbrite and get the tickets there too. So super easy. Just go to the Vault website and literally click the link.
And then when you're done clicking that link, they can click on your link and maybe get some merch.
There you go.
Wear to the show.
Super, super easy. Heartsick.us is all you have to remember.
Awesome.
Right on.
Well, thank you again so much for being on. I know it was kind of late, but
no, I'm so grateful and thankful that you guys asked me to be on the show, and it's an honor, and this is something that it's a gift to be able to be asked to do these things. A lot of bands don't get to do this type of stuff, and we're fortunate, and it's awesome that you guys asked. And I'm sorry I was a little late.
No, you're good, man.
But I appreciate you guys wanting to have a conversation and asking so many fun questions. And I love seeing the guitar collection and the Superman collection. It lets me know that me, as an older male as well, am not that weird when I have my own collection of things. So
I ain't gonna lie. When I first met him and I walked into his apartment and I saw this, I went, oh God.
No, I think that's a fair assessment to have as a woman.
But she married me this past Friday, so
I think it's a fair assessment to have as a grown ass woman when you go into grown ass man's room and he's like, look at all my toys, and you're like, oh shit. Right? I mean, fair. We can't be mad about that. you know, because I would be like, your toys. What are we like in fucking high school? What's happening right now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But now I understand it now, and you know what? This is crazy. So I always consider myself pretty normal. I watched Iron Man,
Yeah.
and then he says, "But do you understand Iron Man?" And then had me go through and watch all of the all of this stuff. Like I had no idea. Like Iron Man 2,
Yeah.
it was like, but I just thought, man, they come out with another whatever, and it's always like worse. But I had no idea it was like this.
It's all interlinked. It's all storytelling. You know, when you can tell a great story and it speaks to people, I think that's when you have something special, right?
Yeah. I had to watch 10 hours. Well, it was more. It was like a whole weekend. It was like a whole weekend of movies. I was like,
great
oh
way
my
to
gosh,
spend.
this makes so much more sense now.
Yep. Good way to spend the weekend. So
Yeah. Well, thank you again for coming on. And always remember to
keep the music playing, ladies and gentlemen.